What's going on, everybody? As you can see, I'm inside the house. I tried to record outside. Of course, it's too hot. Ain't no way. Extra spicy. It's probably about 1:15 out here in Vegas. It's all good. It's all love because I'm not complaining. I'm a dry heat kind of guy. I'd rather have this dry heat than the humidity any day. Here in Las Vegas, it's spicy, y'all. I had to bring it inside one time for the one time. So that's why you see a new scenery, and it's all good because we're gonna rock out regardless. A very, very good vlogcast today. We're gonna be discussing again my 18 years of parenting. I have an 18-year-old. He's going to college, and I'm gonna share the good, the bad, the ugly with y'all from my first newborn to now. He's 18, about to go to college. So let's get into it. Welcome back again to Raising Humans Together. Today's episode is a little different, y'all. This isn't about giving parenting advice. It's about sharing what life has taught me after raising my oldest son for the last 18 years. Those who know me know I'm a pretty private person, but today I want to be a little bit more open. I want to be a little bit more vulnerable. You know what I mean? So, I'm going to share some of the moments that shaped me as a father, because if my journey can help another parent, then it's worth sharing. That's what it's all about. One thing I know for certain that I realized is parenting goes by incredibly fast. People used to tell me that all the time too. Enjoy it. They'll grow up before you know it. We all hear it a lot as well. But I don't think I truly understand it like I do now. And it honestly feels like yesterday that my son was born. I'll never forget that day, of course. His mom had a very traumatic delivery. It was actually a scary one. At first, it was just one doctor in the room checking on her. Then it was another one. Then it was another doctor. And then it became some nurses, doctors and nurses, and it was just chaos. That's when I realized something wasn't right. And she realized something wasn't right. She was pretty much bleeding. I guess they didn't really suture up, everything they were supposed to suture up after after the birth. And she caught it. So kudos to her on saying something that she felt that wasn't right, because that was a scary moment. And all I can remember is just holding my son, looking around the room like, what's happening? What's going on? And it was one of the scariest moments I'm definitely going to say in my life. That's a fact. And thankfully, everything turned out okay, though. But I'll never forget that feeling. And just moments like that remind you of how precious life is. That's the reality of it. Then came his first steps, his first words, his first day of school. I remember like it was yesterday, because he lived in two households since birth. And I wasn't there for every milestone, and I didn't get to witness his very first steps. And to be honest, it still stings a little bit. But what I learned was parenting isn't about counting every moment you miss. It's about making the moments you're giving count. That's the reality of it. That became my focus, of course, as a father when I had him. I wanted to be fully present, of course. And school, it definitely was not much of an issue for him, for my oldest. I did learn he had a little personality at school. And I remember laughing because around me, he just wasn't that vocal. So hearing some of those stories made me realize that kids have different versions of themselves depending on who's around. And a little guidance, a little discipline, and a lot of conversations helped him get on the right path. I was going to straighten that out anyway, so I wasn't really worried about that. One memory I'll never forget is teaching him how to drive. That's probably one of my fondest memories as well. It was stressful, but probably more stressful for me than it was for him, for sure. He passed the written test his first try, but the driving test was a little, perplexed for him. And that took more than a few attempts. But looking back on it, I'm actually glad it did, because he learned something much more bigger than driving. I felt he learned resilience, He learned that failure isn't the end, and sometimes success simply asks you to come back better prepared. And he stayed with it. You know what I mean? That's one thing I give him. He didn't quit. He didn't make no excuses. He just kept showing up. And eventually he earned his license. And as a father, that made me proud because he showed his resilience. And what more can a father ask for? Then, of course, graduation came. That day hit me harder than I expected. You know, watching him walk across the stage, knowing everything he'd overcome, growing up in two households, still staying focused, working hard. It reminded me how blessed me and his mom really are. And I'm going to touch a little bit more on that as well, because that was something that I definitely want to highlight. And I'm very proud of my son about on how he was just a team player for both sides. So I'll definitely get into that a little more as well. Then came his big scholarship to graduation. And yeah, I definitely shed a few tears for that. Not because of the financial aspect of it, although saving a few dollars, you know, we all want to save. It was because of something people kept telling me afterwards. I would hear people say, Adrian, you spent years helping other people's kids, mentor their kids, you poured into their kids, and you helped them get to college. Now it's your family's turn to be blessed. And that meant more to me than you know folks would probably know. It reminded me that sometimes the seeds you plant in other people's lives find their way back home. So that was truly a blessing. I'm forever grateful for that. Um, and now here we are, college bound, very excited to see what's coming in the near future, of course, because this isn't just the next chapter in his life. It's the beginning of a brand new season for both of us. His mother, of course, and his stepmother as well. But one thing I knew early on was that I wanted him to leave home from college. I didn't want him to stay here locally. Not because I wanted him gone, because I wanted him to grow. I wanted him to experience life on his own. I wanted him to solve problems on his own, meet new people, of course, learn responsibility and build his confidence. And that's exactly what college did for me. Some of the greatest growth in my life, I feel, happened after I left home. I wanted him to have that same opportunity. And sometimes the greatest gift, we can give our children, I feel, is just letting them fly. And also enough room to become, who they're capable of becoming. And his graduation party, I remember telling all our family and friends that were there something that I truly believe in. And I said, don't stop pouring into him because he's 18 and now off to college. He's still going to need us collectively. He's going to need the encouragement. He's going to need people checking in on him. He's going to still need advice. He's still going to need the village as a whole. Because turning 18 doesn't mean you stop needing guidance. It just means guidance starts looking a little different. And I hope he always knows, no matter how old he gets, of course, he'll never have to figure out life alone. And that's what I definitely want to let my son know. And I told him that. So I hope that sticks with him. And again, thank you all for the village who came out and just keep continuing to support him and love on my son. Now, let's shift gears to discuss what I believe I did right as a parent. So we'll get into a little something more personal. And these are just my opinions as a father. I'm going to give you the good, like I mentioned, the bad and the ugly. And because I truly feel that's what parenting is. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not perfect. There's no blueprint. There's no manual that tells you exactly what to do. The best thing we can do is learn from one another, is how I truly feel. So these are some of the things that, looking back over the last 18 years, I honestly felt went well. Not because I was the perfect father, by any means, but because these are the things I would encourage parents to be intentional about. And the first one I'm going to say is definitely family time. For us, that meant family dinners, whether it's game nights. We talked about sports, school, life. Sometimes we talked about mistakes we made that week and what we learned from them. Those conversations, I feel, became some of our greatest teaching moments at the dinner table. And even now, with my youngest son sitting there at the table listening, he can also see and learn just by hearing, these conversations. Sometimes the greatest lessons aren't planned. And that's what I would definitely learn as a parent. They're simply discussed around the dinner table. The second thing I would definitely say that I think really helped is me keeping my son involved. Sports became a huge part of our lives. And I know I've said this in previous vlogs as well, but I'll say it again because I believe in it that much. Parents, get your kids involved in something, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's dance, robotics, art, something. You got to get them involved and keep them involved in something. Just don't let them spend their free time doom scrolling on social media, on their phones, on their tablets, on their computers. Idle time has a way of pulling kids towards things that don't help them grow. Sports, I felt, taught my son things I never could have taught just sitting in the couch, sitting in the house. It definitely taught him discipline, how to work with a team, how to lose with character. That's important, I feel, and how to win with humility. And I think what was important is how to respect coaches. That was important to me. How to compete as well, and how to work hard even when nobody's watching. And here's something else I feel is important. He wasn't always the best player, but that never really mattered to me. I'm going to be honest with you all, because I wasn't chasing trophies. I was helping build character. The lessons he learned through sports will stay with him much longer than any scoreboard ever will. So I truly felt that's important. Another thing I'm proud of is the communication we built. From the time he was a little kid, especially growing up between two households, I always wanted my son to know one thing: no matter where he was, no matter what happened, his dad was one phone call away. And I wanted him to know there wasn't a problem too big or a mistake too embarrassing as well that he couldn't come to me and talk about. Now, did I always agree with some of the decisions and things he did? Absolutely not. We had some tough conversations, some uncomfortable conversations as well. But one thing I always tried to do after these, hard conversations was to look him in the eyes, tell him I loved him, and of course, give him a hug, because I never wanted discipline to make him question my love. I wanted him to understand that correction and love can exist in the same moment. Another area I believe I did well was providing structure. I've always been a firm and stern father, not because I wanted to control my son, but because I wanted to prepare him for life. I always told my boys, I'm not your friend. I'm huge on that. I'm your father. So, and I know a lot of parents don't agree with that, but that's just me. That's my perspective on it, and that's okay. But here's why I believe it. Friends tell you what you want to hear, of course, but parents tell you what you need to hear. And my responsibility, I felt as a parent, wasn't be the most popular person in the household. My responsibility was to prepare my sons to become good men. Sometimes that meant, saying no. Sometimes it meant setting boundaries. Sometimes it meant having expectations that they didn't always like. But I felt structure gave him stability. And kids thrive when they know where their boundaries are. Another thing I'm grateful for is we prioritize as a family traveling. Some of my favorite memories happen away from home. The Disneylands, the Legolands, the beach, the different states. I felt that help. Even traveling out of the country. Before he was a teenager, he was out of the country. And I think traveling teaches things that classrooms can't. It exposes kids to different cultures, different people, different ways of thinking. They get to see different ways of people, how they live, and it just expands their world. Sometimes the greatest education, it isn't found in a textbook. It's found by simply seeing more of the world. One thing that's been a part of our family since my boys could talk that I'm proud of is always communicating positive affirmations. Every morning before school, even now with my youngest, I still do it. I ask them, "Who are we?" And they answer, "We're Hunts." And I ask them, "What are we?" And they would say, "Leaders." And I would also say, "What do we have a lot of?" A lot of, and they would say, "Pride." Those positive affirmations I felt was very pivotal in their lives, in shaping them. And it may seem simple, but these moments I believe matter because I wanted them hearing positive words at home before they heard the opinions of the world. I wanted confidence to become part of their identity, not because I told them they were better than anyone else, but I wanted them to know who they were before somebody else tried to tell them who they weren't. So that was why it was important to me. Another value that was important to me was manners. I've always believed that manners say a lot about a person's character. Speaking when you enter a room, shaking hands, looking people in the eye when you talk to them, saying, "Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am." Holding the door, definitely for the ladies and the older folks. And just respect, other people's homes. I'm big on when you enter somebody's home, speak to everybody. I've always been huge on that. And I even hold my son's friends accountable when they come here by speaking, saying, "Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am." Very, very important to me. Um, what's another one I feel? Just overall, just treating people with kindness. Those things, they don't cost anything. Just being a kind human. That's what I've always wanted to preach to my sons. Uh, and right along aside manners, I feel is respect, and definitely respect for adults, respect for your teachers, respect for women, and most importantly, respect for yourself. Very huge. Through mentoring over the years, I've seen how much respect can change a young person's life. It's one of those values that never goes out of style. And I would say, finally, accountability. This one has always been big for me. I wanted my son to understand that mistakes don't define you, but how you respond to those mistakes, that's what defines you. And own up to your mistakes. Own them. And always tell the truth. I'm huge on that. And learn from them. Move forward from your mistakes. One thing I never tolerated is dishonesty. Not because I expected perfection, but because trust is the foundation of every relationship. I'd rather my son tell me the truth about a mistake than lie to avoid consequences. Because if he learns accountability at home, he'll carry that into every relationship, every career, I feel, every opportunity life gives him. Now, as proud as I am of those things, there were also some moments where I got it wrong. Moments I wish I could go back and handle differently. And if I'm going to be honest on this episode, I owe it to you to talk about that other side as well. So let's get into the struggles. These are the biggest things I struggle with as a parent. Parenting, it hasn't been perfect for me. Um, and I don't think it's been perfect for any parent watching this, to be honest with you. And that's one of the reasons why I started this platform, Raising Humans Together. Not because I have all the answers, because I don't, but because I believe we can learn from each other's experiences. So again, the good, the bad, the ugly. of my struggles that I felt as a parent, I would definitely start with missing important moments. One of my biggest struggles was missing events because of work. And as parents, we all make sacrifices. We all can relate to this. For me, those sacrifices were even more challenging because I was a young father raising my son between two households, of course, while trying to build my career. And there were games I couldn't make, school events I couldn't make, moments I wish I could have been there for my son. And some of those things were simply out of my control. And at the time, I was trying to build a career that would provide stability for my family and for my son. I worked different assignments. I picked up overtime like a lot of parents try to. I wanted to give my son the opportunities that I didn't have growing up. But here's what I learned. Providing for your children is important, but being present matters too. It's a constant balancing act. I don't know that any parent ever feels like they've mastered it, still figuring it out. Another one I would say is being too hard. I think I was too hard on my son at times. Now, don't get me wrong. I still believe in structure. I still believe children need boundaries. I still believe parents should parent. But looking back, there were some moments when I probably corrected more than I encouraged. As a young father, I thought being tough automatically made me a better parent. But what I realized was kids don't just need correction, they need connection. And I've learned that you can be firm without making home feel heavy. And I think I've become much better at finding that balance over the years, of course. Another one I would say, and I've talked about this before in previous vlogs, is choosing curiosity over confrontation, which leads me to another lesson of balancing discipline with grace as well. When I was younger, my first reaction was often confrontation. And today, my reaction has changed. It's more of curiosity. Instead of immediately asking, what were you thinking? I try asking things such as like, help me understand what happened. Those are two different conversations when you put it in perspective and when you look at it. When you ask questions, you learn what your child is thinking. You understand also what they're feeling. And sometimes you discover the issue isn't what you thought it was at all. And that shift changed the way I parent. I definitely learned that, and I felt I could have did that better. Wanting to protect our kids from everything is another struggle. Trying to protect my son from every mistake is impossible. And if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want to see your child hurt. You don't want them to fail. You definitely don't want them making decisions that they'll regret. But here's the reality. You can't protect them from everything. That's just the reality. And honestly, you're not supposed to. Some lessons have to be experienced, of course. Our job isn't to remove every obstacle. Our job is to make sure they know they can come back to us when life gets hard. And I wanted my son to know no mistake, no bad decision, no setback would ever stop me from loving him. And when kids know they're safe coming home, they're more likely to ask for help before things get worse. So you have to leave that door open. Another struggle, patience. That was another big one for me. Looking back on it now, I realized I was expecting maturity from someone who was still learning how to be a kid. Sometimes I forgot he's experiencing life for the first time, and he's going to make mistakes, just like we did as kids and as teens. And the three things I say I struggle with the most were jumping to conclusions, patience in my tone, and when I used to, what that I used when I corrected him, and feeling like every issue had to be addressed immediately. I've learned that is not always true. Sometimes it takes time to let the emotion settle. Sometimes the lesson is received better tomorrow than it is today. Not every correction also has to happen the second the mistake is made. Sometimes wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to wait. Another one I would say is finding time. Another challenge that I had. And I know a lot of parents can relate to this because you're trying to build a career, you're trying to pay the bills, you're trying to save for college, you're trying to take care of the house, you're trying to be a spouse for those out there, be everything to everybody. But some days it feels impossible. But one thing I've learned is this: your kids rarely remember how much overtime you worked. They remember uh, whether you were present when you were home. And that lesson has stayed with me. Another big one that I've learned and that I struggle with coming up as a young parent is learning to let go. This one took me a while to grasp. When my son made mistakes, I wanted to fix everything immediately. Sometimes I'd stay frustrated longer than I should have. And I had to learn not to take parenting personally. Kids are learning, they're growing, they're figuring out life just like we did. And a matter of fact, shit, it was probably a couple days ago that my oldest and I had one of those moments. I wanted to drop kick him. But every parent watching knows exactly what I mean. They'll test our patience. They'll push our buttons. They'll make you shake your head at times like, geez Louise. But don't let one bad moment become a bad relationship. After every tough conversation, as I explained before, I'd make it a point to look my son in the eyes, tell him I love him, and give him a hug. Because I never wanted correction to be the last thing they remember. I wanted him to remember that love came after it, of course. But looking back, I don't regret being intentional. I don't regret having standards. I don't even regret teaching discipline the way I did. But I do wish I'd given myself a little more grace as a young father, because what I realized was we're all learning while we're raising. And sometimes the parent grows just as much as the child does. Now let me tell you what I'm most proud of. And of course, talking about these things brings a smile to my face. The things I'm most proud of when I look at my son today, because at the end of the day, a parent isn't just about raising kids. It's about raising good people, raising good humans. And when I look at the young man my son has become, there are a few things that definitely stand out. His character. The first thing I see is him growing up between two households, which wasn't easy. There are a lot of emotions that came with that between me and his mother. There are a lot of adjustments between us as well. But one thing my son has never done is he's never complained. He never tried to play one parent against the other. He never chose sides. Now, he knew my household had more structure, and he knew, of course, I was the stricter parent. But not once did he say, "Dad, I'd rather stay at my mom's." And I've always thanked him for that, because I know how difficult the situation can be for a child coming from two households. He accepted that he had two parents who loved him. And even when we weren't raising him under the same roof and did not always see eye to eye, that just says a lot about his character to me. Also, another thing that I would say is his respect for others. And if you watched my previous vlogs, you already know respect isn't optional, in my house. it's expected. Seeing him walk in the rooms, speaking to everyone, shaking hands, introducing themselves, saying yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and at times holding conversation with adults, that lets me know those lessons stuck with him. And as parents, we spend years teaching these little habits, and sometimes we wonder if they're even paying attention at times. Um, then one day you watch them do it without reminding them. And that's one of the best feelings a parent can have. His leadership is another one that I can say I'm proud of. Watching him become a leader throughout the years. I had him involved in our fraternity youth mentorship program since he was 8 years old. He stayed committed all of those years, and he was surrounded by positive professional men who changed him and encouraged him and poured into him. So I'm grateful for that. I've always believed that who your children are around matters. Mentors definitely matter, role models. And looking at him today, I can see the influence those men had in his life. That village helped shape the young man he's become. Another one I would say is work ethic. Another thing I'm proud of. One thing I've always tried to do as a father is lead by example. Not just tell my boys to work hard, but show them what hard work looks like. They watch me go to work every day. They watch me build, businesses. They watch me volunteer in the community. They also watch me go to the gym consistently because kids don't just listen to what we say. They're watching what we do. One of the things I've always told my boy is to invest in 3 parts of themselves every day. Your mind, learning something, reading something, growing your knowledge. Your body, which is taking care of yourself in your health, exercising, going to the gym to work out, staying active, and of course your soul, doing something that's therapeutic, that gives you peace, whether it's your faith, leaning on your faith, whether it's music, whether it's serving others, or simply taking time just to reflect. Feed every part of who you are. Now, as he's getting ready for college, I don't have to tell him to work out. I don't have to remind him to take care of himself. Sometimes I come home and he's already been to the gym. So seeing those habits become his own is very rewarding because that's when you realize they weren't just listening, they were actually learning. Another one I would say is his resilience. Basketball has always been his passion. And like every athlete, there were good seasons. There were some bad seasons, some tough ones. And there were times things didn't go his way, but he never quit. He never gave up. He kept showing up. He kept working. And as someone who played sports myself and played college ball, I know how mentally tough that can be. And that's why I'm so proud that he stayed with it. Not because of the wins, but because he learned perseverance. And life isn't always about getting the outcome you want. Sometimes it's about becoming stronger because you kept going, helping others, which brings a smile to me most. Is seeing his willingness to help other people. And he's learned that, again, being around the organization. There are times I'm doing something around the house and he will ask, Dad, you need a hand? And that makes my heart smile. Watching him spend time with his little brother as well. Those moments mean more to me than he'll probably ever realize. I've spent most of my adult life serving other people through law enforcement, mentoring youth organizations as well, and community work. And I've always hoped my boys were watching as I took them along with me. Not because I wanted them to become me, but because I wanted them to understand that life isn't just about what you accomplish. It's about what you contribute as well. And when I see that servant's heart growing in them, That's one of my greatest rewards as a father. When I look at my son today, I don't see a perfect young man because none of us are perfect. What I see is a young man with character, respect, integrity, resilience, and the willingness to work, and a heart that's learning to serve others. Most importantly, those are qualities no diploma can give you, no trophy can give you. Those are qualities that will carry him through life. And as a father, that is what makes me proud. At the end of the day, I wasn't trying to raise the best athlete or the smartest student. I was trying to raise a good young man. And as I watch him step into this next chapter of life, I can honestly say I'm excited to see the man, he's still becoming. Now we'll shift gears to my biggest disappointments. And, every parent has the things they're proud of, and there are things you wish you could do over as well. And there are definitely some moments I'd handle different. The beautiful thing about parenting is that if you're willing to reflect, you keep growing. And one of my biggest blessings God gave me was another son. But having the youngest gave me another opportunity to apply the lessons I learned raising my oldest son. And I've told my oldest this many times. He's taught me just as much as I've taught him. And he's made me a better father. He's made me a better man. And because of him, I'm a better parent to his little brother. And that's something that I don't think he fully would understand until one of these days he has kids. Definitely say I wish I would have listened more. The first thing I would definitely change is just the listening more. Now, don't get me wrong. I've always listened to my son, but listening and truly understanding aren't always the same thing. I was a younger father. I was quick to correct, quick to respond, and quick to assume. I already knew what the problem was. But looking back, sometimes I should have just slowed down, asked more questions, uh, be more curious, listen a little longer instead of focusing on the behavior. I should have spent more time trying to understand what was causing the behavior, because sometimes what looks like disrespect is really frustration. And sometimes what looks like laziness is really discouragement. So sometimes our kids aren't trying to give us a hard time. They're just simply having a hard time. And that took me years to learn. I would definitely say spending more one-on-one time intentionally. Not because we didn't spend time together, because we did. We spent a lot of time together. We traveled. I always took my son to events, played sports. We definitely had a lot of memories, but now that he's 18, I realize how valuable those simple moments really are, of just me and him, no distractions, no agenda, and just talking. And sometimes that can just be about life, or sometimes nothing at all. And as parents, we get so busy managing life that we forget relationships grow through ordinary conversations. And even now, I joke with him. I don't care when he turns 45, 50, I'm still your dad. And yes, he's at the age now where he thinks it's okay to take his time to call me back or text me back. But I don't agree with that. Um, I remind him all the time, I'm your father and we're not buddies. When I call you, I expect a call back. And that's probably not changing anytime soon. But that's a part of being a parent too, learning that your relationships evolve as your children grow. Asking better questions was another one. Um, I wish I had asked deeper questions, not just the surface level questions like, how was school? Did you finish your homework? Is everything good? Those are the surface level questions. Asking things such as, what's been stressing you lately? Give me one thing that's stressing you. What are you thinking about? Is there anything you're carrying that you haven't told me? How was your heart? Is another one. And those are the conversations that build trust. Those are the conversations that help us really know our children as well. Talking more about our emotions is another big one. And even mine, as well as his. But growing up, a lot of us would talk to be tough, keep moving, figure it out. But that's changing now. Our kids need to know it's okay to talk about what they're feeling. And then it starts with us. And one thing I've learned is that vulnerability creates vulnerability. When your kids hear your story, your struggles, your mistakes, they stop seeing you as someone who's perfect. They start seeing you as someone who's human. And I've started, telling my son more about my own life and some of the mistakes I made when I was younger and the poor decisions I made as well. And the lessons I've learned the hard way. And sometimes he looks at me like, you know, maybe a little bit too much. And, or you did that, that's the look I get. But absolutely. And I tell him because I don't want him learning only from his mistakes. I want him to learn from mine too. As mentioned, not taking parenting personally. Another lesson. Don't sweat the small stuff. This is one thing that took me a while. As parents, sometimes we turn little things into big things. Every mistake doesn't deserve a lecture. Every issue doesn't have to be addressed the second it happens. Sometimes it's just simply better to wait. Take a walk together, go for a drive, let the emotions settle, then have the conversation. I've learned also that timing matters. It does. Sometimes your child isn't refusing to hear you. They're just not ready to hear you in that moment. And wisdom is knowing the difference. One thing I also definitely learned is we don't have to be the only voice our children listen to. And I know that's hard for some parents, but it's true. There may be an uncle, it may be a coach, it may be a best friend, a mentor, a family friend who can reach your child in ways that you can't. And that doesn't mean you failed as a parent. Um, it just means you built a village. And as long as they're surrounded by people you trust, people who reinforce your values, that's a win. It's definitely a win. And at the end of the day, our goal isn't for our kids to hear our voice all the time. Y'all know how it was. We were young. We had parents that was yapping all the time. It's for them to hear the right voice. And sometimes that voice comes from someone else. And that's okay. So when I look back over the last 18 years, y'all, I don't see again a perfect father. I see a father who was learning how to lead, how to love, when to be firm, and learning when to listen. And if there's one thing I hope parents take away from this is this: give yourself permission to grow. Your child isn't the only one growing up, because you are too. Parenting isn't about getting everything right. It's about loving your children enough to become a better parent. And if you can do that, you're already giving your kids something they'll carry with them for the rest of their lives. Now, let me leave you with the biggest lessons parenting has taught me. These are the things I now know that I didn't fully understand when I first became a father. And if there's anything you can take away from this episode, I hope it's something from this part right here. Time is everything. Um, Everything else falls under that is time. Your kids don't need a perfect parent. They need a present parent. And I'll be the first to admit that when my son was around 8 or 9 years old, I was out there still trying to chase the bag. I wanted to work. I wanted overtime. I wanted to provide him everything I never had growing up. There isn't anything wrong with wanting to provide that, but sometimes along the way, I realized something. My son didn't need another paycheck. He needed more time with his dad. Money can buy a lot of things, of course, we know that, but it can't buy back the missed moments. And if I can tell every parent one thing, it would be this: don't just make time for your kids, protect that time, protect those conversations, those car rides, dinners, the random moments where you're just sitting together. That's where relationships are built. Give them guidance before the world does. Another one that's important. Your kids need guidance. They need direction. I've spent years, again, mentoring young people. And one thing I've learned is this: if you don't help shape your child's thinking, somebody else will. Social media will, a celebrity will, an influencer will, uh, an entertainer, a rapper. Somebody is always trying to influence your child. That's just the reality of it. And as parents, we have to make sure our voice is louder than their noise. Not by yelling, but by consistently showing up, talking, of teaching, listening, just being present. Help them build their identity. Another lesson. Help your kids discover who they are before the world tells them who they should be. Identity is everything, y'all. And kids who know who they are less likely to follow everybody else. They don't need to fit in because they already know where they belong. And that's why I've always poured confidence into my boys. I want them to know that they had value before somebody else tried to define it for them. Create memories, not just moments. One lesson I'll never forget. One of my fondest memories is with my son was taking him to his first concert, which was the J. Cole concert. He was about 10, 11 years old, and I knew he listened to hip hop outside of, the parenting scope and what I listened to. His friends were listening to it as well. And I knew he was going to hear from somewhere else. So I wanted to at least try to introduce him to some music that had some substance, music that told stories, music that made him think. And looking back, probably one of the best decisions I made, because even today, his taste in music surprises me still. He listens to the J. Cole still, of course, the Mary J. Blige is the music soul child. He's got an old soul. And it makes me smile because those are the memories that we created together as well. Experience become part of your children's identity. Never underestimate that. Another one, conversations matter more than lectures. One of my favorite lessons and what I've learned is reading with them, reading together, talking to them, learning together. Some of our best conversations happen because of a book. We'd read a chapter, highlight the things that stood out, and just sit there and talk about what would interest us. Ask him what he thought, and he would ask me what I thought. And those conversations taught me something. Kids don't always open up during lectures. They open up during conversations. So maybe it's a book, maybe it's an article, maybe it's something you saw on social media. Use those moments to start discussions. Some of the deepest conversations you'll ever have with your child start with something simple. Give them grace. Another lesson. Give your kids grace. They're going to make mistakes. Just like we did. There were definitely moments when my boys tested every ounce of patience I had. I'm talking about those moments where you wake up and you choose violence. And every parent knows exactly what I mean. But here's what I learned as well. Our kids don't need us to be perfect. Like I mentioned before, they need us to help them grow. I always told my son, there are no losses in life. There's lessons. only lessons. There's no losses. So when they mess up, we teach them or correct them. And most of all, we love them. We definitely want to love them. Then help them move forward. And lastly, I would definitely say holding them accountable. Grace doesn't mean lowering the standard. Our kids still need accountability. They need to understand that the choices have consequences. And one thing I've always tried to teach my son is life has rules. And if you respect those rules, life usually goes a whole lot smoother. But if you ignore them, there are consequences. And being in law enforcement, I've seen too many young people whose lives changed because of one bad decision and not following the rules. And that's why accountability starts at home. Not because we're trying to control our kids, simply because we're preparing them for the real world. And overall, y'all, they need us. Our kids need us. They definitely need us. Maybe the most important to me. Our kids need us more than your money, more than our titles, our success. They need us. The most valuable thing to us as parents is our kids. But never forget this. To your child, your presence matters. Your encouragement matters. Your hugs matter. Your phone calls matter. Your time matters. And again, after 18 years of raising my son, here's what I know. I didn't get everything right. I've made my mistakes. I've learned lessons the hard way. But if I had the opportunity to do it all over again, I still choose to be his dad, of course, every single time. To my oldest son, if you ever watch this, I hope you know how proud I am of the young man that you become. You taught me patience, taught me grace. You challenged me to become a better father. And for that, I'll always be grateful. And to every parent watching, give yourself grace. Love your kids as well, but be present. Keep learning because we're not just raising children, we're raising adults that will come. And as I wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. And I really want you to sit with this and think about it. It almost brings tears to your eyes. After 18 years of parenting, I realized something. Kids don't stay little. They just don't. That's just the reality of it. As much as we love to freeze them in time, and as much as we love to keep them at the age that they still can reach out for our hand, life doesn't work out like that. We know that. They grow up, and one day, without even realizing, you'll do something with your child for the very last time. One day, you'll pick them up for the last time. You won't know it's the last time, but it will be. One day, you'll tie their shoes for the last time. One day, you'll buckle them into their car seat for the last time. And one day, you'll watch them run into school for the last time. And eventually, they won't need you to walk them to school anymore or walk them to the door. One day, they're going to leave your house, not because they don't love you, but because it's time for them to build a life of their own. And when that day comes, you'll realize just how fast it all went, y'all. I'm telling you. So here's the question I want every parent watching to ask themselves. What memories are you creating today that your children will still carry 20, 30, 40 years from now? Because in the end, they'll probably won't remember every toy you bought them. They're not going to remember every birthday gift. They won't remember the pair of Jordans you bought them or every dollar you spent trying to give them everything. But they will remember if you showed up. They'll remember if you believed in them, if you listened to them. They'll also remember if they felt safe talking to you. And most of all, they'll remember how you love them. That's what they'll carry into adulthood. Not the things, but the relationships, not the gifts, but the memories, not the perfection, but your presence. And I'll end with this quote. The greatest gift we can give our children isn't everything they ask for. It's becoming their parent they'll remember for the rest of their lives. If this episode encouraged you or made you stop and think about your own parenting journey, do me a favor, share it with another parent, because parenting is too important. It's too hard for any of us to do it alone. Thank you for spending the time with me. And as always, thank you for being part of the Raising Humans Together family. Don't forget to subscribe. And until the next time, keep raising humans together. Peace. See y'all on the next one.